Luke Thomas here at the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, just before the Bellator 149 weigh-ins, after the press conference where this man, Scott Coker, Bellator CEO, has announced Bellator kickboxing and a whole lot more. We'll get to all of that. Scott, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Did you ever think hashtag baby nuts was going to trend on Instagram?
Let me tell you, I was a little worried that he was going to follow through, and I was about to run this way. Hoist was like this. He didn't want to see anything further, but I'm glad that it didn't happen, and in a million years I never thought you'd hear baby nuts in a press conference at Bellator.
I have to say, people were asking me, did it remind you of professional wrestling? Actually, it did not. It reminded me much more of the boxing press conferences I've been to, where everyone who has something to say basically gets a chance to say it. Do you believe that there's something to be valued in keeping that boxing presser tradition alive?
You know what? I'll tell you, I enjoyed it yesterday. I mean, to me, I didn't know what Kimbo was going to say. I didn't know what Dada was going to say. I didn't know what Ken. We're all there just to speak and have some questions and talk to the media. But, man, I jumped out of my seat twice. Once when Kimbo said, hey, go ahead and take the mic. And then he's like, Dada starts talking. Kimbo's like, shut up. I was like, whoa. And the second was when he wanted to bust out his nuts. I was like, no, I got to get out of here, man. This is not going to work for me.
I think you were not alone in that regard. I want to come back to this. Let's talk about the news that's current. You announced Bellator kickboxing. Sure. What's the play here? Let's talk about this. Is this a way to get into Europe before MMA really takes off there in a way? Is this the way to? Well, what is the strategy here for Bellator?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're a Spike TV property. Spike wanted to do kickboxing, want to continue in kickboxing. So I raised my hand. I said, you know what? I could do this. This is right down my wheelhouse. This is something I've done for 20 years before we got into MMA. So we had a long conversation with Kevin and John, and there was a lot of dialogue. I mean, should we go get another brand, bring some other people? I go, no. Give me a year. I'm telling you, we're gonna bust this out. And like I said, this is something very familiar with. Strikeforce was a kickboxing league in the 90s. Before that, it was just called PK Karate. And I've been promoting a long time, and I have more kickboxing promotions under my belt than I do MMA. And when I think about the Bay Area where I started, we've done some kickboxing fights that have had 13,000 people there. You know, I mean, we've done some 8,000, 7,000, but we've had some really successful kickboxing fights. So I know it can be promoted. The partnership with European promoters, they're all out there, man. We got a web of promoters out there that really want to do some stuff with us. And so we'll pick and choose and see which ones we work with. But I think within a year, I think we're going to make a big impact.
I used to work for Glory when they were on Spike for a few events anyway. I've seen their product firsthand. It's an extraordinary product, but they're not on Spike anymore, and now you're doing kickboxing. I think a lot of fans are asking why that happened. So what is the reason for that? Is it because you guys want to exert more control over how fights were promoted and sold?
You know what? I can't answer why they're not on Spike. I mean, really, that was something between the network and them, and I'm not sure what Glory's doing right now. But all I know is that, look, when Spike said, look, Glory's not going to be here, we want to stay in the kickboxing business. I said, hey, I'm your guy. I could do this as good or better than anybody else in this country. So, they said, okay, we'll start throwing some more assets at it. We'll start hiring some more people. I mean, we're going to have to build up our infrastructure to do this as well. So, I'm excited. It's going to be a great time. And like I said, when I look back at the Dynamite show, man, I loved it. I mean, I know you gave me a C+ or a B- or whatever it was, but I thought it was an A-, B+. Come on now. So that's really how I feel. Is like, you can go into a fight and you can watch both. It's a great night.
The grade should be noted. The grade was, I gave it an A for ambition and scale. I just didn't think it all came together. Neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's
okay. When you go to Europe, how are you going to be regulated? Are there government entities that are going to do it, or are you going to self-regulate like the UFC does in certain territories?
We are regulated by the district that we go to. Like, Italy has their own commission and their own thing. And then our Corey Schaefer is going to be our rules director. And he's the guy that has been around a long time, worked with Mark Radner and myself during the K1 days. Even before that, Strikeforce Kickboxing, he was our rules director back then. So I feel really comfortable with Corey. And, we're going to abide by the rules of the local commission, and then we'll, make sure that we're doing everything right.
So you got 1,000 other things going on with Bellator. It's been a big week for you guys in many ways, and the fights haven't even happened. It was announced Rampage Jackson is back in the fold after reaching a, quote, amicable solution. Certainly pros written by lawyers. Neither here nor there. I guess my question is, when can we expect to see him next, and could he be a part of the Bellator kickboxing phenomenon?
That's really up to him. And I've always been a fan of Rampage, and I came in as that whole thing was unwinding, right? So I wasn't really involved in that whole thing. And I tried to talk to him a couple times. It didn't work out. But hopefully we'll get him back in here as soon as we can. As soon as he's ready to go, we're gonna have a conversation when I get back. But as soon as he's ready to go, we want to have him fight.
Is he fulfilling the terms of an old deal, or does he have a new deal? The only reason I ask is because that would dictate the number of fights that he has.
Yeah, I mean, what's in the contract really I can't speak about. But, we're happy with the contract. We're happy with, the length of the contract. I just can't get into the details, as you can imagine.
So other news that has been in MMA this week, the signing of Benson, more than just this week, the signing of Benson Henderson. Tell me why he was such a critical signing for you guys. You passed up on some other free agents. I'll talk about those in just a second. But the Benson one seems to be a great fit from my vantage point. I'm guessing what I want to hear is what yours is. Why was he the correct signing in ways that other prospects, or not prospects I should say, but other agents were not necessarily?
You know what, I'll tell you, when we looked at all the free agents out there, I told my guys, go get Ben Henderson. He's the guy. We need to get him. And we want to have him fight at 170, 155. We have 4 or 5 great fights for him lined up, and he has Kreshkov on April 22nd on Spike. After that, if he wants to stay at 170, we got Paul Daly. If he wants to go down to 55, he can fight Josh again. He can fight Chandler. I mean, we have just a bunch of fights for this kid. And you know what? He's fought everybody. He's still young enough to be considered pound for pound one of the best in his weight class, or ranked top in his weight class. He hasn't ducked anybody, and he's a great kid. What a great spokesperson and role model, for the league and the brand. So to me, when he became available, I told my guys, look, I know all these other guys are coming available, but we got to get Benson, and we did, and I feel lucky, and I'm happy he's on board.
One of the signings that never happened that kind of confused some fans was the lack of signing, I should say, of Aljamain Sterling. The thought was you can get him at a decent price. He has a potential huge upside. Why would you pass on someone when you can easily build in your division? To that you say,
yeah, I mean, listen, he's a guy that, my guys liked, and we had a conversation, and really it just came down to, cost versus value. That's really what it came down to for me, and so...
not to cut you off, but you've told me a number of times if there's someone you really want, you can afford him. So it sounds to me like you're penny pinching, though, so I'm trying to understand what the difference is.
No. I think the difference is, look, if you want to buy a nice, shiny car, and you know that shiny car is worth $100,000, but they want $150,000 or $200,000, it's like, it doesn't feel good after a while, And I'm not saying that was his thing. I'm just saying, look, a lot of times fighters right now, because there is free agency and there's people bidding on their services now, that hasn't happened in a while, they think, oh, everybody's going to overpay. No. UFC's not going to overpay. We're not going to overpay. I mean, this is still a business. We have budgets. We have to run a fiscally responsible, company, and that's what we're going to do. But, when I think about a couple of these free agents, the numbers they're throwing at us, I'm just like, is it really worth it? I mean, are you really going to move the needle for me that much right now? Are you really going to put that many butts in the seat? Are you really a guy that I could build up to be the next guy? And that all takes into account, and that's why some fighters will go after hard and pay, and some we won't.
So what is Alistair Overeem worth?
Yeah, Alistair, he signed a contract. He's not available, so that's not even a conversation.
How would you, if some fan asked you a question like that, how would you answer it? Like, how do you answer the question of what a guy is worth? At the very low end, when they make their entry, they're worth what, 10 and 10 or something like that. At the very high end, if you're Conor McGregor and you're selling 1 million pay-per-view buys, you get a general sense of their worth. Yeah. But all that space in between, it's a very difficult question to answer. How do you answer what a guy is worth?
It's a value proposition is hard to answer, really, because you're talking about not just his fighting ability, not just his marketability, but also you're talking about, does he have the X factor? Can he speak? Is he going to be good in front of a corporate environment? Is he going to be good out in public speaking about Bellator? And is he like the complete package? And believe me, I've had those fighters in my league before. When you think about Strikeforce or other leagues we've had some great guys that were super marketable, could speak, they could do it all. They were like a superstar, and we've had those, and to me, it's hard to say what is that worth, and things change, Hey, if he goes and wins a couple fights, or he becomes a free agent again, which I believe, listen, any fighter that's out there fighting for the next 18 months or 2 years, at some point will be a free agent again, and then we're going to talk again and see what the brand, what the value proposition is, and that's really what it comes down to. Is like, Ben made a lot of sense because he's still young. look at his last performances. We're pretty. I mean, he still can fight at that elite level. I'm not saying those other guys can't. And Alistair, has fought everybody already. And he's at the UFC, and I'm happy for him. And the only thing is, look, we had conversations with all those guys. For anybody to say, "Oh, we never talked to Bellator," whatever.
That's not true.
That's not true. The reality is, we talk to. They all call us because they all want to know, what am I worth, right? And so, those conversations happen with the managers and our people. So sometimes it's myself, sometimes it's Rich. Sometimes it's both of us on the phone. But those free agents are definitely calling, having conversations, negotiating, and sometimes we make an offer, sometimes we don't.
Moving right along here, just one more and we'll get to this Dada 5000 and Kimbo Slice event here. Chris Lieben, certainly a decorated competitor, a guy everyone has a bit of a soft spot for. I have to say I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the signing, but I'm curious to hear your response.
Yeah, I mean,
the head trauma, I got to say, it's a little disconcerting. So what precautions are you guys taking to make sure he gets the proper medical screenings?
You know what? He wanted to come to Bellator and be a competitor, and we said, look, health and safety first. I don't know him well because he didn't fight for me, but I know of his past. So we said, let's have a meeting. We met with him. He's a great guy. He wants to get back into it. So I said, okay, let's sign him, but it's going to be based on him passing his medicals. Okay. And so he's going through a battery of tests, heart-related, head-related. Because in California, I think if you're over 35, they make you go through a lot more tests. Right. And we're having him do everything because, honestly, health and safety first. That's really the most important. So hopefully he'll come out okay on all his tests. He'll be able to compete. But if we have a problem with one of his tests or two of his tests, then he's not going to fight for us.
So let's get into the card that's going to take place here tomorrow. Where does this one rank among the tent poles you've done? I feel like I don't know if it's the biggest, but certainly one of the biggest ones. Where does this one stack up?
You know what? The buzz on this fight is pretty amazing. I mean, someone showed me, Shaq just tweeted out, hey, man.
All the sports reporters I follow on Twitter, they are all talking about Kimbo fighting.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, New York Times wrote an article. LA Paper came out. Lance Pugmire did some good work for us. Thank you, Lance. But, it's, you guys are here. Come on, this is a big event. And, when you look at the amount of media and press and hype and digital and social numbers, this thing is going to be a really good event. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we break our ratings.
I don't want to get into the old debate of whether this is a thing for everyone. Some people like the casual kind of audience being brought in. I don't want to get into that necessarily. But I guess what I'm wondering is some fans have said, okay, it's one thing to have the debate about what kind of thing you like, but some have said, I don't agree with it, but I'm curious to get your response. Well, it's destructive to the sport. This kind of thing hurt. Why is that, in your judgment, why don't you agree with that?
Guys, here's the thing. It's like, look, has Dada had some MMA fights? He has. Has Kimbo? Is Kimbo in a training camp, like a real training camp? And Hoist and Ken, come on, these guys are legends, right? Legends. I mean, to me, if they didn't fight that first fight, we might not all be here today, honestly. So that's my answer to that.
And then I guess lastly, the one thing I'm sort of curious about is you usually put like your up-and-coming guys, from the ground up kind of guys, right, on the down ballot fights. Why wasn't Darian Caldwell on this? This guy to me seems like the next big thing. Great opportunity. You were telling me, hey, when Pitbull and Vishal fought, it was with a big audience. Where's Darian Caldwell?
Well, you know what? I say watch for Sanchez on this fight. That's the guy.
Another, Duke Rufus guy.
Yeah, yes, he's tremendous talent. We have a lot of hopes in him, and we thought he'd do really well here in Houston, and we think he'll do well on TV.
Last question. Predictions in terms of TV ratings. No, will this be bigger than Kimbo versus Ken?
I am keeping my fingers crossed that we beat the ratings, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this will be the biggest gate in Bellator history. So those are the two things.
Also, why is John Wall a better point guard than Steph Curry? I just had to figure that.
That is impossible. Steph Curry is the best point guard ever in the history of basketball. No, Steph, we love you. I'm a Warriors season ticket holder. I'm watching you play all the time. We love you. Go Warriors.
Thank you for your time. Best of luck.